The Blue Umbrella, written by Ruskin Bond. Part 2. Binia seldom closed the blue umbrella. Even when she had it in the house, she left it lying open in a corner of the room. Sometimes Biju snapped it shut, complaining that it got in the way. She would open it again a little later. It was not beautiful when it was closed. Whenever Binia went out, whether it was grazing the cows or fetch water from the spring or carry milk to the little tea shop on the Tehri road, she took the umbrella with her. That patch of sky blue silk could always be seen on the hillside. Old Ram Bharosa kept the tea shop on the Tehri road. It was a dusty, unmetalled road. Once a day, the Tehri bus stopped near his shop and passengers got down to sip hot tea or drink a glass of curd. He kept a few bottles of Coca-Cola too, but as there was no ice, the bottles got hot in the sun and so were seldom opened. He also kept sweets and toffees, and when Binia or Biju had a few coins to spare, they would spend them at the shop. It was only a mile from the village. Ram Bharosa was astonished to see Binia's blue umbrella. "What have you there, Binia?" he asked. Binia gave the umbrella a twirl and smiled at Ram Bharosa. She was always ready with her smile and would willingly have lent it to anyone who was feeling unhappy. "That is a lady's umbrella," said Ram Bharosa. "That is only for Mem Sahibs. Where did you get it?" "Someone gave it to me for my necklace." "You exchanged it for your necklace? Your lucky claw?" Binia nodded. "But what do you need it for? The sun is not hot enough and it is not meant for the rain. It is just a pretty thing for rich ladies to play with." Binia nodded and smiled again. Ram Bharosa was quite right. It was just a beautiful plaything. And that was exactly why she had fallen in love with it. "I have an idea," said the shopkeeper. "It is no use to you, that umbrella. Why not sell it to me? I will give you 5 rupees for it." "It is worth 15, said Binia. "Well, then I will give you 10. Binia laughed and shook her head. 12 rupees, said Ram Bharosa, but without much hope. Binia placed a 5 paisa coin on the counter. "I came for a toffee," she said. Ram Bharosa pulled at his drooping whiskers, gave Binia a wry look, and placed a toffee in the palm of her hand. He watched Binia as she walked away along the dusty road. The blue umbrella held him fascinated, and he stared after it until it was out of sight. The villagers used this road to go to the market town. Some used the buses, a few rode on mules, most people walked. Today, everyone on the road turned their heads to stare at the girl with the bright blue umbrella. Binya sat down in the shade of a pine tree. The umbrella, still open, lay beside her. She cradled her head in her arms, and presently she dozed off. It was that kind of day, sleepily warm and summery. And while she slept, a wind sprang up. It came quietly, swishing gently through the trees, humming softly. Then it was joined by the other random gusts, buzzing over the tops of mountains. The trees shook their heads and came to life. The wind fanned Binya's cheeky. The umbrella stirred on the grass. The wind grew stronger, picking up dead leaves and sending them spinning and swirling through the air. It got into the umbrella and began to drag it over the grass. Suddenly, it lifted the umbrella and carried it about 6 feet from the sleeping girl. The sound woke Binya. She was on her feet immediately, and then she was leaping down the steep slope. But just as she was within reach of the umbrella, the wind picked it up again and carried it further downhill. Binya set off in pursuit. The wind was in a wicked, playful mood. It would leave the umbrella alone for a few moments, but as soon as Binya came near, it would pick up the umbrella again and send it bouncing, floating, dancing away from her. The hill grew steeper. Binya knew that after 20 yards it would fall away in a precipice. She ran faster, and the wind ran with her, ahead of her, and the blue umbrella stayed up with the wind. A fresh gust picked it up and carried it to the very edge of the cliff. There it balanced for a few seconds before toppling over out of sight. Binya ran to the edge of the cliff. Going down on her hands and knees, she peered down the cliff face. About 100 feet below, a small stream rushed between great boulders. Hardly anything grew on the cliff face, just a few stunted bushes, and halfway down, a wild cherry tree growing crookedly out of the rocks and hanging across the chasm. The umbrella had stuck in the cherry tree. Binya didn't hesitate. She may have been timid with strangers, but she was at home on a hillside. She stuck her bare leg over the edge of the cliff and began climbing down. She kept her face to the hillside, feeling her way with her feet, only changing her handhold when she knew her feet were secure. Sometimes she held on to the thorny bilberry bushes, but she did not trust the other plants, which came away very easily. Loose stones rattled down the cliff. Once on their way, the stones did not stop until they reached the bottom of the hill, and they took other stones with them. So there was soon a cascade of stones, and Binya had to be very careful not to start a landslide. As agile as a mountain goat, she did not take more than 5 minutes to reach the crooked cherry tree. But the most difficult task remained. She had to crawl along the trunk of the tree, which stood out at right angles from the cliff. Only by doing this could she reach the trapped umbrella. Binya felt no fear when climbing trees. She was proud of the fact that she could climb them as well as Biju. Gripping the rough cherry bark with her toes and using her knees as leverage, she crawled along the trunk of the projecting tree until she was almost within reach of the umbrella. She noticed with dismay that the blue cloth was torn in a couple of places. She looked down, and it was only then that she felt afraid. She was right over the chasm, balanced precariously about 80 feet above the boulder-strewn stream. Looking down, she felt quite dizzy. Her hands shook, and the tree shook too. If she slipped now, there was only one direction in which she could fall, down, down into the depths of that dark and shadowy ravine. There was only one thing to do: concentrate on the patch of blue just a couple of feet away from her. She did not look down or up, but straight ahead, and willing herself forward, she managed to reach the umbrella. She could not crawl back with it in her hands. So, after dislodging it from the forked branch in which it had struck, she left it fall, still open, into the ravine below. Cushioned by the wind, the umbrella floated serenely downwards, landing in a thicket of nettles. Binya crawled back along the trunk of the cherry tree. 20 minutes later, she emerged from the nettle clump, her precious umbrella held aloft. She had nettle stings all over her legs, but she was hardly aware of the smarting. She was as immune to nettles as Biju was to bees. Thank you for listening. Now some of the words and their meaning. Sometimes Biju snapped it shut, complaining that it got in the way. Snap shut means close quickly with a sudden sharp sound. Whenever Binya went out, whether it was to graze the cows or fetch water from the spring. Graze means cattle eat grass in a field. Spring means a place where water naturally flows out from ground. Ram Bharosa was astonished to see Binya's blue umbrella. Astonished means surprised greatly. Binya gave the umbrella a twirl and smiled at Ram Bharosa. Twirl means spin quickly and lightly and often repeatedly. Ram Bharosa pulled at his drooping whiskers. Drooping means bend or hang downwards. Whiskers means the hair that grows on a man's face. He gave Binya a wry look Wry look means twisted look, mocking. Binya sat down in the shade of a pine tree. The umbrella, still open, lay beside her. She cradled her head in her arms and presently she dozed off. Doze off means to fall asleep, especially for a short period and in daytime. And while she slept, a wind sprang up. Spring up means to start to exist suddenly. Binia set off in pursuit. Pursuit means chase someone or something in order to catch them. The hill grew steeper. Binia knew that after 20 yards it would fall away in a precipice. Precipice means a very steep side of cliff. Cliff means a high area of rock with a very steep side. A fresh gust picked it up and carried it to the very edge of the cliff. There it balanced for a few seconds before toppling over out of sight. Topple means to lose balance. Binya ran to the edge of the cliff. Going down on her hands and knees, she peered down the cliff face. Peer down means look down with great difficulty. About 100 feet below, a small stream rushed between great boulders. Boulders means a large rock, typically one that has been worn smooth by erosion. Hardly anything grew on the cliff face, just a few stunted bushes. Stunted means unable to grow to normal size. Halfway down, a wild cherry tree growing crookedly out of the rocks and hanging across the chasm. Chasm means a very deep, narrow opening in rock, ice, or the ground. Binya didn't hesitate. She may have been timid with strangers, but she was at home on a hillside. Timid means showing a lack of courage or confidence, easily frightened. At home means comfortable. As agile as a mountain goat, she did not take more than 5 minutes to reach the crooked cherry tree. Agile means able to move quickly and easily. She noticed with dismay that the blue cloth was torn in a couple of places. Dismay means a feeling of unhappiness and disappointment. She looked down, and it was only then that she felt afraid. She was right over the chasm, balanced precariously about 80 feet above the boulder-strewn stream. Precariously means in a way that is not securely in a position and is likely to fall or collapse. Looking down, she felt dizzy. Dizzy means having a sensation of spinning around and losing one's balance. If she slipped now, there was only one direction in which she could fall, down, down into the depths of that dark and shadowy ravine. Ravine means a deep, narrow gorge with steep sides. So, after dislodging it from the forked branch in which it had struck, she let it fall, still open, into the ravine below. Dislodge means to remove something or someone, especially by force, from a fixed position. Cushioned by the wind, the umbrella floated serenely downwards, Landing in a thicket of nettles. Cushion means to make the effect or force of something softer. Serenely means in a calm, peaceful, and untroubled manner. Nettles means prickly or stinging plant. 20 minutes later, she emerged from the nettle clump. Emerge means move out of something and become visible. Her precious umbrella held aloft. Aloft means in the air or in a higher position, raised. She had nettle stings all over her legs, but she was hardly aware of the smarting. Smarting means sensation of feeling a sharp stinging pain. She was as immune to nettles as Biju was to bees. Immune means not responsive. Thank you very much.